Kia me from Sydney, Australia. My name is Sue Ollerhead, and I'm delighted to invite you to join us at the 2021 Hamburg International Summer School. Wurumi is an Aboriginal greeting that means I see that you've come from far away, which seems very appropriate in these circumstances. I am a lecturer in languages and literacy in the School of Education at Macquarie University in Sydney. I have a PhD in education, but also a background in linguistics, particularly in teaching English to speakers of other languages. My job involves researching many issues around language education, training teachers, and advising schools on how best to support multilingual students. I have worked as a teacher trainer and researcher in South Africa, where I lived for many years, in Egypt, the United Kingdom, India, and Australia, where I've lived for the last 14 years. My research interests are mostly around multilingual learners in monolingual English medium schools. I'm also very interested in translanguaging pedagogies in culturally and linguistically diverse classrooms. Language policy underpins all of the work that I do, and I'm particularly interested in adult education for migrants and refugees and their linguistic integration in society. One of the topics that I'll be looking at in our summer school is the issue of cultural and linguistic diversity in school settings. You may think that everybody in Australia speaks English, and while we do have a very monolingual English school system, we have a very diverse learner population. For example, in New South Wales, where I live, where Sydney is located, up to 36% of learners come from language backgrounds other than English. And many of those students need targeted language support to be able to participate in mainstream schooling and to be able to access the contents of the curriculum. Unfortunately, we find that many teachers do not feel equipped to meet the needs of multilingual learners. Often we see them framing multilingual learners as a problem, as challenging or problematic learners. And they really do discourage multilingual learners bringing their first or second languages into the classroom. They say that bringing first languages into the classroom ends up excluding others and interferes with their learning. Now, this goes against a body of research that shows how important it is for students to be able to maintain their first language and to use their first language to support their learning in another language. And one of our key researchers in Australia says that we are so busy defining multilingual learners or English as an additional learners as problems that need to be fixed that we have lost sight of the fact that they are the most linguistically savvy learners in our schools. Now, this issue of recognizing the linguistic diversity and the linguistic resources that multilingual learners bring with them to the classroom underpins most of my research. And I guess you could frame it in the sense of a question that asks, how can we recognize multilingual students' linguistic savviness to enhance their learning and social well-being? So instead of seeing them as problems that need to be fixed, how can we learn the linguistic knowledge, the cultural knowledge, the grammatical knowledge that they bring with them to not only support their learning, but to enhance the learning of all students in Australian classrooms. And in doing so, we look at it through the lens of translanguaging pedagogy. If you're not familiar with the term translanguaging, I'll give you a brief introduction. It's the process of making meaning, shaping experiences, gaining understanding and knowledge through the use of two or more languages. To put it simply, translanguaging is a process whereby multilingual speakers use all of their languages as an integrated system to communicate, whether for asking questions, providing answers, or participating in any other form of communication in the classroom or elsewhere. Now, I, as a South African coming from a country where there are 11 official languages, I will switch between at least 3 languages when I go back to South Africa. I will switch between English, which is my first language. I'll also use Afrikaans and possibly isiXhosa, depending on the circumstance. And I'm sure many of you will do the same. And we are looking at translanguaging as an act of natural language use that can be harnessed for classroom learning. So we are looking at ways in which we can integrate this idea into classroom practice. So instead of giving students that come from other language backgrounds a whole list of English vocabulary to learn, we might get them to brainstorm key vocabulary in a range of different languages that are represented in the classroom. And we've seen this to great effect where students actually actively engage in vocabulary building. And instead of just learning the English word, they learn the word of every single student language group in the classroom. We also look at strategies such as doing community studies, getting students to do a study of all the different languages that are represented in the linguistic landscape around them. Sydney has a huge Asian influence, and lots of Asian languages are represented in our landscape. So getting students to realize that Australia is not just a monolingual English-speaking country, that there is a lot of linguistic diversity that is welcomed and is welcomed in the classroom, is a very big part of the work that we do. So in this time of COVID-19, I'm so sorry that I won't be joining you this year, but I'm really looking forward to joining you next year. We must remember that while borders are closing, it's more important than ever to open our minds. So I'm looking forward to having you join us at the Hamburg International Summer School in 2021, very appropriately devoted to linguistic diversity, education, and social participation. I do hope you can join me. I do hope you can join us, and look forward to seeing you in 2021.